This is going to be for the Rusty's off-road product, the rear cargo tray for the Wrangler JL. This here is just the packaging of it. As you can tell, again, as you can see, there is a very thick layer of foam that they have added in here. Very impressed with how they've done it to protect. And then you got your instructions there. So this is going to be very well protected the way it's coming. In that little tiny packaging, you got a couple stickers and the instructions here. I'll just kind of give you a brief overview of it. And let's go ahead and get to building. Alright, for this you're going to need your Allen wrench for your bolts. You're going to need a 11-inch for the smaller ones and a 13 for the actual bolt there on it. I can tell you this is some very nice thick steel. It is by no means cheap in any ways. There's kind of a comparison on the bolt head. I'm not going to go over exactly every single step with this because to bolt this in, each one of these side holes are just going to line up with your basic holes, and we're going to have your side pieces. You can pretty much tell from the picture how this goes together. What I will do though is kind of go over some of these parts here with how these are going to bolt in, how you have an adjustable part to it, and then the most important part is how this goes into the actual Jeep itself and attaches in with a soft top. As you tell, this is just be the first corner, just kind of showing you how it all folds together. And these will, the bottom one will end up coming back out later when we put the actual floor pan in. When you go to put the, what would be the base of it on, just remember that these flanges that are coming up, normally you want to face towards the top of it. That way anything you put in there won't slide around as much. So this is actually going to have turned the other direction, so they're actually facing in just like these ones here are facing in. Alright, now ultimately it is personal preference whether you're going to want the top of the bolt sticking up or the top of the nut sticking up. Me personally, I want the bolt to be on the bottom side, so when I'm pushing things up underneath and anything dragging on, it's not going to catch on it. If we have the actual nut side up, say you put a sleeping bag or something else in there, when it's coming across it could end up tearing on that. So because of that, I want it nice and smooth. Alright, this is the side piece once it has been bolted on. I've still got them a little bit loose. When I get them actually on the Jeep, I'll tighten those down. But just like the instructions say, the one hole goes towards the front, and then you got your mount, and the two holes on the back, so that way you can tell the difference between them. Alright, once you got all that put together and hand tight down, but not too hard, we're going to come back and grab the middle size bolts here. And those are going to end up being the bolts for each one of your corners down here on your corners, just because you got 3 layers of metal that made it a little thicker. Now, one nice thing that I have actually noticed when putting this together is I thought this was going to be completely flat, and as you can see, if this will focus in here, there is actually a gap right here. The nice part is what ends up happening is they've actually sloped this piece of metal, so it kind of comes from left to right, so from here to there it's not completely flat, and that's going to allow some of that water that might ever get in to slide out and go out without basically just puddling up and pooling up on here and causing a problem. T40, which is the star pattern one, you're going to take off the bolt right here on the back side for a soft top. Up with the one right here. 2 bolts, put your soft top back up, and then you're just going to push up on the bar and it should pop right out, and just let it sit there for a sec. That's removed. You're going to remove this bolt and that bolt. Doing that, this is just going to slide out. You might have to get a little bit of pressure to taking off that, and there's your holes exposed. We're then going to, on this panel here, this is going to line back up with your bolt holes here, just like that. And we're just going to lower this piece here back on into its place. Once you've placed your soft top back into the holder, you're going to re-secure your bolt on this upper. Alright, this is going to be it in. As you can see, this can go all the way down. Fits right in, and we're going to look at the spacing that we have. Come back in there, just barely clearing it. I'm going to get a better view with it up in some brighter light. We've got in the light here, it's actually this inner bar is rubbing on the actual frame and causing it not to be able to come down all the way. So I'm going to have to send them an email back because they told me that this does work with the soft top, and even had pictures of it online. So it does work with the soft top in the up position, but not down. Here's a view from the top side. As you can see, the bar is clearly rubbing right here, and it is not going down nearly as far as it's supposed to for the factory style. You're going to want to take this one out, and then there's one right here on the back side of this. That's the one that we can't get to because there's no cutout on it. I'll show you. It would be right here is where the bolt needs to go in, but there's no way to access it. Looks like, and we'll come down to your dimensions here. So as you can tell, it comes just to the back side here, a little bit of distance. It comes very close to the back seat, with still giving just a little bit of space as needed. Overall, you guys, very satisfied with this rack system. It is sturdy. We were driving around, it has not made any noise whatsoever. As earlier, my only kind of complaint is it does not work with the soft top in the down position. When trying to put it down, like we talked about, this bar up here is hitting the edge just a little bit. So if you have a hard top, 100% go buy one of these things. It is solid, loving it, it looks good. If you have a soft top, that's something that you're going to have to determine if you're going to be putting yours down, if that's something that you no longer want to do. What I'm thinking about possibly doing is coming in and with these side bolts here is creating a rack system that might come around and end up bringing this down about an inch or two and mounting that at a lower point and scooting it back up towards the seat a little bit more, which might allow the top to come down. That might be something that we work with later on and see if we can't do to create something like that. But that would be a custom job that isn't going to be just out of the box for someone else to be able to do. To get this to a lower position is we're going to undo these two bolts and get just a very thin piece of metal, and basically we will end up bolting the metal to the top piece up top here, and when this lowers down it will then bolt on down here. So kind of imagining if this piece of wood was actually a piece of metal, it will kind of sit in like that and allow for a lower attachment point down a little lower, actually meaning that this bottom here will actually end up sitting closer to about this height right here. And in doing that, we can also push this about an inch back to the seats, which should be enough to clear all of your rails and everything else in this. This is obviously something that Rusty's going to be giving out with their package. It could be something they come up with later, but it is something I'm going to try to make work for us because my wife's Jeep, she loves having the top down and all the way. She does not like to leave the back half up. Also, as discussed earlier, the longer bolt that I ended up using for the 4 lower corners, the instructions actually say to use the shorter of the 2 bolts, and the longer bolts are for the actual side to where it attaches into the side bracket part as shown here. My issue that I had is this bottom bolt, with that being 3 layers of metal, the small bolt was just not wanting to make it all the way through and grip onto the nut enough, so I decided to use the longer ones, and the shorter ones work just fine, making plenty of penetration through the nut, where on the back side it wasn't coming all the way out, but it was not recessed in where it was going to cause a breakage. Also, it's an 11mm, not an 11-inch socket.